Before I start my message, I want to take a couple minutes and talk to our church family. So if you're a guest today, feel free to listen in or check your email. Either one's fine. I told you last week, 2019 has been a difficult year. Our pastoral team and church staff has gone through an unbelievable sequence of events. I don't have time to share them all and don't want to share them all in one place, but just to give you a sense, Pastor Lane developed horrible neck pain. When the surgeons looked at it, they said he obviously had been in a significant wreck or suffered a major fall. He hadn't. There was no explanation. He had surgery last week. Pastor Gary's wife, Chelsea, was temporarily paralyzed with no explanation or apparent cause. At one point, the doctors said she might never regain freedom of movement. Her recovery has been long and slow. Thank God she has no permanent paralysis. Our executive team leader, Rita Russell, developed a hole in her sinus and a constant ringing in her ears. Again, no cause. She then had emergency surgery followed by recurring infections. She's lost the last several months, not been here because of it. I could go on and on. Over and over, our team and their families have been hit with mysterious illness and injuries. Much of it's deeply personal and still going on. I've been talking to our National Assemblies of God leaders, sharing the stories and things our team has been facing. I just need someone to process with. And they agree they've never heard anything like it. That's just our team. But the same story can be told all throughout our church. I've talked to many of you who are sensing and feeling the same thing. Even the last 2 weeks have brought more tragedies, crises, unexplainable sickness and disease. Now, I get it. We're a large church, and statistically, more things happen when there are more people. But we've been a large church for years and never faced anything even close to this. None of the other large church pastors I've talked with have seen anything like it either. Now, you know me. I don't like to give Satan credit, and I am not the type to say that everything bad that happens is because of his attacks. As long as we live in this world, we will have trouble. Jesus predicted that. We get that. But this feels different. It is different. You've heard me talk about it some. But I believe we're in the middle of a season of intense spiritual warfare. There could be a lot of reasons for that. We're invading the enemy's territory. We're planting a church in Helena, West Helena. We are tackling human traffic at its worst with Project Rescue. We are openly fighting racism and prejudice and hate and addiction. Satan's fighting against us, and he's fighting strong. And please know, I'm not defeated. We're not defeated. The God we serve is more than able. But there are times the battle is more intense, and it's time to step up our efforts. I'm tired of playing defense. It's time to go on the offensive and go after the enemy. I've never done this in my 18 years as pastor, but I believe this is what the Lord would have us to do. In fact, God first put this on the heart of our former pastor, Alton Garrison, as he talked and thought and prayed with me about what we're going through. God confirmed it in my heart through others in our leadership team. So starting next Sunday, October 20th, and ending on Thanksgiving Day, I'm calling our church family to 40 days of fasting and prayer. We are going to break the power of the enemy and believe God for a great breakthrough of victory. Now, your initial thought might be, Pastor Rod, I can't go without food for 40 days. I get that. Or I don't know how to fast and pray. That's okay. We're going to learn together, and I'm not asking you to quit eating for 40 days. I am asking you to prioritize prayer and spend at least some of your meal times for 40 days praying instead of eating. Next Sunday night, 6 o'clock, we're suspending our regular schedule to talk about it and pray together. And I want you to change your schedule and be here. Even if Sunday nights aren't usually your thing, I want it to be your thing next week. I'm only asking you for one. This church needs you. I need you desperately. I'm wearing down. I'm feeling the effects of the fight. I need you to stand with me and with our leadership team. If you can't be here in person, plan to watch online. I'll share more this week on social media, in my weekly email, but let's face this together. It's time to move from warfare to victory. And after a season of battle, there always comes a season of victory. How many of you are ready for that season? Yeah, me too. So the timing of today's message seems particularly appropriate. I want to talk to you about depression and steps to move past it to victory. Have you ever been in a season where it feels like anything and everything is going wrong? When the phone rings or an email notification sounds, you're afraid it's going to be more bad news. You worry that one morning you're going to crash and just not be able to get out of bed. You're weighed down with worry and fear. You wonder what's next, what else could possibly happen. You're exhausted from anxiety and stress. Doesn't matter what you do, you're always tired. You wonder if it's ever going to end, if your situation is ever going to turn around and things get better. Satan seems to be attacking every day on every front. Have you been there? Are you there? Difficult and unexpected circumstances happen. Discouragement is part of life. Things don't always go your way. But discouragement is usually temporary. Something else comes along, your spirits are lifted. I'm talking about something different, not just discouragement, but depression. Depression, deep discouragement that hangs with you and leads you to believe it's not going to get better and it'll never be better. Now, right off the bat, I want to make sure you understand it's not a sin to be depressed. Dealing with depression does not make you a weak Christian or a bad person. I also want to be clear, depression can be caused by chemical imbalances and other medical conditions. Needing medication to get your body healthy and balanced is often necessary. Don't throw your medication away without consulting with your doctor. I'm not talking about medical causes of depression because I'm not a doctor. I do want to talk about when circumstances get you down and you find yourself battling discouragement and depression. One of the most famous men in the Old Testament was a prophet named Elijah. Elijah was a man of great faith who God used to do many miraculous things. But this is not the story of an incredible miracle. Instead, it's a look at the lowest moment in Elijah's life. Let me set it up for you. Elijah won a huge victory over the prophets of Baal in a showdown to determine the one true God. It is a great story. It's found in 1 Kings chapter 18. I encourage you to read it. I'm going to give you the super short version. 2 altars were set up, each with a sacrifice. Whichever God was real would send fire from heaven and consume the sacrifice. So the prophets of Baal went first. They yelled, they screamed, they cut themselves, they cried out to Baal. He never showed up, no fire. When they were done, Elijah poured water on his sacrifice. He's a little smart aleck, making it a little more difficult. He prayed a simple prayer to God, and fire from heaven burned up the sacrifice, even burned up the rocks. It was impressive. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." It's awe. It's a little bit of fear, because if He can send fire to those rocks, He can send fire down on you. It was a time of spiritual awakening in a pagan nation. Then Elijah prayed, and God sent rain, ending a long drought. Another miracle. Elijah was riding high. He was famous and popular, and people were listening and watching. But there was one person who didn't like Elijah. Instead, Jezebel, the wicked queen, was angry and jealous. Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I don't make your life like one of them." In other words, I'm coming for you. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to kill you. After Elijah defeated Baal and then God sent rain, Elijah should have got a palace and a promotion. Instead, what he got was a death threat from the queen. It was wrong, it was unfair, and it's completely not what he expected. Like Elijah, you get depressed when things don't go the way you expect. You expect a raise, instead you get laid off. You expect to make a nice profit, instead you lose money. You expect health, you get sickness. You expect to get ahead, you end up falling behind. The gap between expectation and reality becomes a source of discouragement. That's where a lot of people lose their faith. That's why marriages fail. Things don't go as you expected. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. Elijah defeated all the prophets of Baal. Now he's afraid of one woman. He forgot about God, forgot about God's strength, and he took off running from the queen. Sometimes when things go wrong, you forget the strength and power of the God you serve. You think you have to come up with the answer. You get depressed when you forget the power of God and instead try to handle things on your own. When Elijah came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there. Now, if Elijah had kept his servant around, his servant might have said, hey, snap out of it, Elijah. Remember all those dead Baal prophets? Remember fire from heaven? We can handle one old woman. Come on, God's on our side. Let's go. But Elijah didn't hear that. He didn't hear words of encouragement because he retreated into solitude. And we do that same thing, don't we? When things go bad, you withdraw. The people who could encourage you or challenge you are left behind. Sometimes it's not intentional. You just get so caught up in trying to fix your problems that you forget to allow others in. You may not intentionally remove yourself from the right people, but you don't intentionally surround yourself with them. I've heard it so many times. I just haven't felt like being around people and coming to church. I'm just struggling. Well, that's the very time you should be at church. See, isolation feeds depression. When you're struggling from depression, the last thing you need to do is withdraw from others. Elijah took off on his own. He left his servant. Well, he himself went a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. It's a really low moment. Elijah, God's great prophet, was depressed and without hope. He said, I'm tired. I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. Seems like it will never quit. God, just take me home. You get depressed when you're worn out. Feels like you're in a hole trying to dig yourself out. But the more you shovel and the more you dig, the further down you go, the bigger the hole gets. And you find yourself thinking, I'm just exhausted by the thought of this. It's too much. I can't take it anymore. It never seems to stop. Fatigue feeds depression. Elijah continued. This is his prayer. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. You get depressed when you compare yourself to others. When you compare, you have a tendency to compare your weakness to their strength. And that's depression. Inevitably in counseling, people say, well, if I could just be like, then everything would be okay. If I could just sing like Lucas. If I could just be patient like Pastor Tyler. If I could just be a perfect husband like Pastor Rod. The sad thing there is how loud Cindy laughed. That's not what I was hoping for. Don't compare yourself to others. That's a trap that will only make you more depressed. Then Elijah lay down under the tree and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was a cake of bread. I guess you could call that angel food cake. Sorry. Apparently that made you more depressed. There by his head was a cake of bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for this journey is too much for you. The angel told Elijah, you can't make it on your own. This road's too long. It's too difficult. You need help. You get depressed when you try to make it in your own strength. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness and insult and hardships and persecution and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. It's when we acknowledge our weakness that we can receive his strength. And so he, Elijah, got up, ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. Now, we kind of read that quick, but I want you to think about it. From one meal, Elijah got enough strength for 40 days of traveling. Now, wouldn't that encourage you? I'd be amazed. Elijah traveled to the mountain of God, better known as Mount Sinai. It's a pretty good place to run when you're in trouble, the mountain of God. Elijah knew all the things that had happened on that mountain. Mount Sinai is where God spoke to Moses out of a burning bush. Mount Sinai is where God gave Moses the 10 Commandments and the law. This was God's mountain, but Moses wasn't on a mission from God. In fact, it was the opposite. Elijah was off mission. He was running because he was afraid of an angry, bitter, evil old woman. When Elijah got to Horeb, a holy place, instead of worshiping and thanking God, he found another place to hide, this time in a cave. It's like Elijah completely forgot that God just gave him 40 days of travel on one meal. That's what happens when you're depressed. You are so focused on yourself, you can't see what God is doing. You forget his blessings. You forget his miraculous provision. God is helping you. You're just not stopping to recognize it. If you could only see God's hand, if you could only see his involvement and his blessings in your life, but in your depression, you miss God's blessings. And the word of the Lord came to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? Which is an interesting question from God. Elijah didn't really answer. Instead, he gave God a news report. He said, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me too. And God said, wow, I didn't realize any of that. I am so sorry. Thank you, Elijah, for cluing me in. It's a good thing you ran. I feel bad for Elijah because he lost perspective. He was wallowing in self-pity. Look around, God. I did what you said. I followed your instructions. And look what happened. It didn't work out at all. They're trying to kill me. All the rest are gone. I'm the only one left. What are you going to do about it, God? Elijah wasn't thinking straight. Look again what he said. I'm the only one left. That's not true. Remember, this was right after fire from heaven. Everyone on the mountain declared their belief in the one true God. There were more people on Elijah's side than ever before. But Elijah took off from his friends and from all the people that were with him. He left everyone. Then he said, I'm the only one left. He wasn't the only one left. He was the only one who left. When you're in a deep valley and you feel all alone, you lose perspective. It's hard to get outside of your own world and see from a bird's eye view or to see from God's perspective. Let me kind of show you what I mean. Let's say this is you. We're going to say you're little and you're a bit square. And right in front of you is all the bad things that are happening in your life. And here is God and all he is doing. When you allow all the bad things to block your focus, you're seeing that, and you can no longer see past the difficult circumstance. You can no longer see past the problems. You can no longer see past the people against you to the God who is still there, and he's still working on your behalf. You just have an exaggerated perspective of all the bad things happening, the big, negative, terrible things, and sometimes it's easy to let those things block your view of God and what he's doing. Because all you can see is your circumstances. Just like Elijah, you exaggerate the negative. You exaggerate the negative because you're comparing the negative to you instead of comparing the negative to your God. Every mistake someone makes is an attack. Every time someone forgets to say hello, it's intentional snub. And you say things like, nobody loves me. Everyone's against me. There will never be another girl like her. No one will ever love me again. I'll never get out of debt. Everyone's against me. Everyone is talking about me. They have everything. I have nothing. That's a sign you're depressed. It also makes you more depressed. You know it's not true. You're just wallowing in self-pity. You've moved from under a tree to hiding in a cave. And God would say to you today, move over a few feet and get out from under that tree. It's blocking your view. Take a few steps. Walk outside of the cave and look up and see me. I'm here. I'm for you. You are not alone. In Elijah's cave of depression, that's exactly what God did. God spoke to Elijah. The Lord said, go out, stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Now, up to this moment, Elijah was just running and hiding. He never once stopped in the presence of God. Now God said, get out of the cave, Elijah, because I'm on my way. God told Elijah where to go, but you know where to go. When you're depressed, don't stay home isolated and alone. Go to church. Go to where God's presence is. Get in your prayer room. Turn on your worship music. Fight depression by getting in the presence of God. Often that one step is enough for me. I just have to get in God's presence. When I begin to worship, the troubles and worries of my life diminish. And all of a sudden, instead of seeing these things, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the God that's bigger than all my problems and all my fears and everything that comes against me. When I begin to worship, the troubles and worries of my life get smaller. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. Elijah had to think, that was awesome. That must be God. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, or not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake. Okay, that must be it. But the Lord is not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. It was an awesome display of power and force. It was better than any fireworks show. But God wasn't in the wind. God wasn't in the earthquake. God wasn't in the fire. In all of those things, Elijah didn't hear or sense God. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. If you grew up in church, you may have heard this gentle whisper described as a still, small voice. A better translation would be the sound of gentle stillness or silence. Because it's difficult to describe the sound of silence, translators chose the word whisper or a still voice. But literally, after all the noise, there was the gentle sound of stillness. And that's where God was, in the silence, in the stillness. That's what got Elijah out of the cave, because he knew God was there. The silence brought Elijah out of his cave of despair. And I think there's a lesson for that in us. In the church, we've kind of lost that stillness. If it's silent, you get uncomfortable. I can count on it. If I say, let's be quiet before God, you're nervously going to start coughing. Happens every time. Depending on your background, you might even believe that silence means someone needs to talk. Someone needs to fill the silence. We are uncomfortable with the silence, so we make it go away as fast as we can. And I'm afraid we often miss what God wants to speak to us and do in us and through us in the silence. Elijah was the opposite. The silence spoke to Elijah. Even in silence, I'm here. Elijah, do you want me to show you my power? I can do that. But I'm still God even when it doesn't look like it. I was present in the high of the fire from heaven against the prophets of Baal, but I'm also here in the low of the silence of Mount Sinai. I'm the God of the mountaintop. I'm also the God of the valley, and I'm here, and I'm with you. In the highs, we point to our big, great God. In the lows, we tend to doubt God is there. And especially in silence, we wonder, can God really be here? He is. Quit your striving and your fighting. you're trying to handle things, you don't have to do anything. Just get in God's presence and be still. Stop. Settle yourself. Don't do anything. Just listen for God. Discover the voice and presence of God in stillness, in the silence.
Be still and know that He is holy. Be still, O rest the soul of mine. Bow before the Prince of Peace. Let the noise and clamor cease. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is faithful. Consider all that He has done. Stand in awe and be amazed. Know that He will never change. Be still. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is God. Be still. Be speechless. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know He is our Father. Come rest your head upon His breast. Listen to the rhythm of His unfailing heart of love, beating for His little ones, calling each of us to come. Be still. Be still. Be still.
And when Elijah heard it, the silence, he pulled his cloak over his face, and he went out, and he stood at the mouth of the cave. You say, well, wait a second. Didn't God already tell Elijah to come out of the cave? Finally, he obeyed. If you want to overcome depression, obey God. I know that sounds too simple, but how will you ever escape the situation if you don't obey God? Do what He says. Obey His word. Say, but I don't feel like it. Since when did you trust your feelings more than the voice of God? Obey Him. Obey His word. Obey God. I worked on a list of things you could do here. I wanted to give you, here's the top 20 things you can do to obey God. But the truth is, you know what God told you to do. And you know where you're being disobedient. If you're actively living in disobedience, expect the depression to continue. Your disobedience distances you from the very thing you need most, God. Go back to the last thing God told you and obey. And then a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Same question as before. Only this time the voice came in a gentle, soothing whisper. "Elijah, why are you still here? What's going on? What are you doing?" And Elijah replied, the same words, but I think in a very different tone. "I've been very zealous for the Lord Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left. And they're trying to kill me too." Elijah's depressed perspective caused him to believe that. His feelings were valid. That was truly how he felt. But God knew better. God gave Elijah clear instructions on how to get back to who he was before, how to get back to thinking clearly and having the right perspective. The Lord said to him, "Go back the way you came. Go back to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. And anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, to succeed you as prophet." God didn't want Elijah to stay at Mount Sinai. It was time to go back and do what he was supposed to do in the first place, leading Israel in a revival, anointing kings and prophets. God said, "Elijah, it's been long enough. Get up. Get out of the cave. Time to get back on track. You've been in this low long enough. And Elijah, if you stop here, you'll stay here. Go back to your assignment." The worst thing you can do is quit on God in life's worst moments. Don't stop there. Keep going, because if you stop in the low, you'll stay in the low. Why would you want to stay there? When things are going wrong, that's the best time to be faithful and obedient. When you're depressed, you drop out of everything. You retreat from everything good as well as everything bad. It's true. Elijah did run from Jezebel, but he also ran from God's plan for his life. Don't make the same mistake. If you want to overcome depression, don't let depression keep you from your assignment. Get back in the choir. Start teaching your class again. Get back in ministry. Return to your assignment. Now, am I saying pretend like everything's okay? Absolutely not. But don't quit. Get back to doing what God has called you to do. God has a plan and a purpose for your life. Fulfill it again. Listen to me. I have a word from God for you. Don't quit. I understand things aren't going right. Don't quit. People have let you down. Don't quit. You feel isolated and alone. Don't quit. He is God of the mountaintops, the highs. He is also God of the valleys, the lows. Don't quit. Look again at verse 16. Anoint Elisha to succeed you as prophet. Do you know who Elisha turned out to be? He was Elijah's most faithful follower who stayed with him to the end. God said, "Okay, Elijah, enough time feeling sorry for yourself. Time to invest in others." See, in depression, you're completely focused on yourself. Fight depression by investing in others. Work with kids or students. Volunteer to drive a bus at Metro. Help feed the homeless. Join a visitation team. Instead of focusing on yourself, invest in others. In church work, people sometimes let you down. It's often the people you've invested the most in. You give and you give and you give and you give, and then they turn on you. And I tell our team, when that happens, as fast as you can, go right back out and invest in someone else. As fast as you can, give again. Don't let someone's failure turn you inward and bitter. Love someone. Believe in someone. Invest in someone again. Let God use you to make a difference. God finished with a reality check for Elijah. Jehu will put to death any who escaped the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escaped the sword of Jehu. Now, look what God says. Yet, I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal and whose mouth have not kissed him. Now, you remember what Elijah said a few minutes ago to God? I'm the only one left. God let that go, but now God's coming back. And God's saying, by the way, that only one thing, not quite. In fact, there are 7,000 more people in Israel who have not bowed down to Baal, but who follow me. Not only are you not the only one, there's more than 7,000 people with you. When you're trying to overcome depression, remember, you are not alone. God's with you, and we're with you. You aren't alone. There are people who will fight this battle with you. Don't go hide under a tree or in a cave. Don't withdraw. Don't go it alone. Come out of that cave and let us fight with you. We will love you, encourage you, pray for you, and help you hear God's voice. That's what family is for. And we're in this together. I want to pray for you today. If you're in a moment or a season of discouragement or depression, and we have, hear me for just a moment, in the church we have done a disservice and we have made it uncomfortable to admit that, and that's sad and that's wrong. We worry, what will people think if I admit that? Here's what people are going to think: you're discouraged or depressed. And we've all been in that season before, and that is not something to be ashamed of. That shame keeps you from the love and the prayers of God's people. Don't let it. We got to get past that. You say, well, what are people going to think if I'm depressed? They're going to think you're depressed. And then we're going to pray for you. And we're going to pray that God will bring you out of that, and that you'll hear his gentle voice. Would you bow your heads with me? And just for a moment before I pray, we're just going to be still. Joseph's going to quietly play, but we're just going to be still. Would you do that? In the stillness, he's here.